God, yeah, I love when I'm prescient about things that. God damn it, Rockio. Why did I pick the one person who's always wrong? Hey everybody, welcome back to another Stoneface Reactions. I'm Theta, and we are back with some more Gnosia. We just got done a couple of loops that left me really confused, but I've had a chance to go back over the episode, as I always do, and we come back with notes, a board, and some comments. So let's go ahead and hop into the board first thing. Had to reorganize some things because for some reason I've kept a horizontal layout. So if I keep information off to the left, the thing's just going to keep zooming out and out. But as I indicated before, there will be a link down in the description to an image of the board in case you want to see if I got anything wrong. But the board changelog, I for some reason didn't mention all the lines between characters that I put down. So that's definitely something you can correct me on if you want to correct me on it. As loop 3, I added Stella and Shigemichi. I marked Rakio and Shigemichi as frozen. I marked Setsu, SQ, and Yuri as eliminated. Then in loop 4, I added the engineer role, and then I marked Yuri as it. I marked Rakio and Shigemichi as frozen. I marked Gina as eliminated. Obviously, I think I should have also put on there I marked Rakio and Shigemichi as the Gnosia, because they were. So yeah, that was the board. So we have a bunch of notes from myself to go through first, and then we hit the comments. We came up with that method a long time ago, because sometimes there'll be comments that say things that I already have notes about, and it makes more sense for me to say my notes first, and then if we reach a comment that has something to say that I already addressed in the notes, well, we already addressed it. It's easier that way. So it looks like by the opening, there will be 14 characters altogether by the end. Actually, I think it's like 15. I think that initial count's wrong. I think there's a guy, or it could possibly be nobody. I don't know. Whatever they address themselves as. There is a person in the opening that looks a whole hell of a lot like Yuri, but is not Yuri. So there might be 15 characters in the opening. Pointedly, Yuri is never in the scenes that I'm counting, so technically 16 if you want to count Yuri. We are at 7 so far, 8 if you count the character that appears for a few seconds at the end of this episode. So halfway to the max. And I'm just saying max, not maximum intensity, since we are apparently getting new roles as well, and I have no idea how many of them there might be. Also, I guess the opening answers my question about if Yuri were to get infected, as the final shot of the opening has everyone in it turning into a Gnosia, except Yuri's not in the shot. I should also add that I think I heard that this show is going to go to like 20 episodes. So, if like in 3 or 4 episodes we're almost halfway there, I just feel like they're just going to be adding complexity until we are bleeding from the eyes by the end. Oh, since I'm looking all over the place, I feel like I should address this. This is not a comment that I'm going to read, but it's a comment I'm going to address. As if you're new to the channel and you're only watching my Gnosia reactions, really. If I'm looking this way, this is where my camera's at. This is my middle screen. It is where my OBS layout is. So pointing here is me. That's also the screen showing the video. So if it looks like I'm looking over here, this is where I'm watching the main recording, or video rather, the much larger screen. But if I look over here, I'm still watching the video. It's smaller, but I can still read it. The only reason I look over here is because the camera's here and I'm addressing you directly and the audience. Now, if you see me look over here, that is where my Discord window is. That is actually me being distracted. Point that out, yell at me, whatever, but that's me being distracted. There's no window over here. I'm actually missing stuff if I look this way. That only usually happens when I have a co-host, because the Discord window that's being recorded from the call is over there. So sometimes I won't be looking at him in them in the OBS window. I'll be looking at them in the Discord window. That wasn't actually a note. That was just addressing a thing because I, too, am a fan of consuming other people's reactions. And one of the things I hate the most, well, I hate pause reacting, but you watch what you can get, right? One of the things I hate the most is when you're watching a group of people react and the other one reaches over to grab the other one's attention so that they look at them, and now you have two people not watching the thing that you're here to watch them watch. I hate that. So I get I get not liking it when it seems like I'm suddenly looking away from the thing. Do not worry, had that built in mind. If I'm looking at the camera, I can see the window. So, is the implication of the time loop being able to change events that in the original two loops there were only 5 people on board, and in these new timelines, more people got on board? I imagine that's what it is. However, I suspect that we aren't going to start losing people to the timeline change, only gain them. While I personally think it would be interesting, I can see where it would be bad game design if you made a well-loved character that just vanishes and never comes back. Might sour your franchise. At the same time, it heightens my concern for something that I was fretting about last reaction. Namely that if things can change in an ever-increasingly backwards direction, then facts about characters can change as well. Meaning that keeping track of any character's personal traits past a single loop could entirely be a waste of time. Stella, for example, if she was saved by Yuri in one timeline and not in another, then that doesn't mean anything as a clue. At the same time, I get that Stella was the Gnosia in that loop and may have been lying about being saved to someone that she suspects of having amnesia. Yuri wouldn't remember and being unable to contradict her, so her lie would stand, and she would assume that Yuri really did have amnesia. In which case, Yuri not saving her would be the truth going forwards. But I would need at least 2 loops where that information was confirmed in order to see it as true, which is going to be my failure in these reactions. I'm either going to treat everything everyone says is true but suspicious, or need multiple episodes to establish something is true and be wrong many times over. How can Levi not tell who is a Gnosia, but can tell 2 people are Gnosia? Again, just another element of what I imagine to be game mechanics not fully explained by the show. In my head, I'm imagining that Levi is detecting the size of the biomass, or maybe that it reads the Gnosia like a heat signature and the heat signature is doubled or something. But we aren't getting any information like that from the show. I appreciate that this is all game stuff, but they needed to take more time building the world of the show to make it make more sense. It's all well and good when you are playing a choice-based adventure, but not ask why your characters don't do X thing that you imagine that they would do. But when watching an anime, characters moving around with complete freedom, it's hard not to ask those questions. Amnesia is both Yuri's best weapon and worst weakness. It's a good weapon for him, as it's a good mask for him not understanding the things everyone else does. Gives him more room to ask questions, feel everything out. Unfortunately, it makes him immediately suspicious to Rakio, who then tries to take Yuri out in the first vote every time. If Yuri could figure out a way to convince Rakio that he was in the clear, he'd have the smartest person on the ship on his side. Unfortunately, we lose them every loop, right from the very start. On the other hand, though, Rakio getting themselves taken out first or second nearly every time goes some ways to showing that they aren't actually all that good at this. So maybe having them as an ally wouldn't even be all that valuable. I wonder if Stella and Rakio will turn out to be from the same fleet. I think I mentioned before that they feel like they have the same accoutrements going on, and it feels like Stella is being played as an intelligence character as well. Again, just feelings that I had while I was writing my notes. I would think that if Levi can tell that there were 2 Gnosia before, it should be able to tell that there is either 1 or 2 now. But the conceit of them not saying how Levi can detect anything at all leaves no clues as to how it determined how that does or doesn't work. I guess the only real way to tell was that only 1 person got eliminated in the warp. Had there been 2 left, the game would have been over after 1 warp. 7 people, 1 human gets frozen, leaving 6 players left. 2 would die in the warp, leaving 4 players left. 2 humans and 2 Gnosia means the Gnosia wins. So Rakia should have been a Gnosia, something Yuri doesn't seem to consider when thinking that there are 2 Gnosia left. Unless that is a game rule that each Gnosia doesn't kill 1 person, but the Gnosia as a whole kills a person. In which case, unexplained and it doesn't make any sense to me. And then loop 3 ends with 2 Gnosia, so I guess that is the rule. 1 Gnosia doesn't kill 1 person each night. All Gnosia kill 1 person each night. And I know I've said that twice now, but I feel like it's still confusing enough the way I worded it. Which I mean to say is that if there's 2 Gnosia, they still kill 1 person. If there's 1 Gnosia, they also just kill 1 person. If there's 5 Gnosia, they kill 1 person. Versus my previous line of thinking of, if 2 Gnosia are around, they kill 2 people. If there's 5 Gnosia around, they kill 5 people. 1 kill per Gnosia, but seeing as it's based on a game, and I guess the game is supposed to take a certain number of rounds, you don't want it going too fast, and I guess you also don't want, half your players taken out in the first... I keep wanting to say night, because I keep thinking of, Blood on the Clock Tower or something. So previously I suspected that the fish were a clue. In the first episode, it was a reddish fish chasing down a blue-white one, I think, and it turned out to be SQ, a character clad in red. The first loop this episode had 2 blue-white fish in the tank, and it turned out to be Rakio and Stella, 2 characters predominantly blue-white. I don't think the fish tank shows up every time, and this may pan out to be my theory about the order that they showed up as Gnosia in the opening. Was going to also be the order that they were the Gnosia in the episodes, and that was proven false immediately. So, interestingly, Shigemichi claimed that this was his first time eating food made by an Earthling, when Gina makes him something in the holodeck. Previously, he acted shocked about an alien being on board, implying that he wasn't an alien, and he does later go on to claim to be a human. Though Earthling in this context could just mean people from Earth and not specifically some other planet. Though I believe Gina claimed to not be from Earth, like a planet that was 70% water or something. I think Earth has more than that. Might be my stupidity is ruining this effect here. Then again, that was Gnosia Gina that said that. Then claims then going back to Shigemichi, he claims his skin is artificial skin, and he is being in an accident. All elements that are located on the board, if you want to see what I'm listing for people. I might not be listing all the details that I should. Which, I'll cover this when we go into the comments specifically. There's an element of the comments that I want to bring up, but I'll hit that up when we finish the notes, because we're getting close to the end here. I was going to make a comment on how often the Gnosia seems to fall in love with Yuri. SQ's flirting, Gina's date, Stella's whole act that one time. But at the same time, SQ always acts that way. And Setsu put on a similar act for Rakio. Sorry, sometimes in my head I'm getting Stella's name and Setsu's name mixed up for some reason. I'm just saying, it doesn't appear to be a determining factor. People just are falling in love with Yuri, I guess, because he's the main character, or they're lying, So this engineer thing throws logic right out the window. Levi can't determine who the Gnosia is, right? So what is this database that knows who the Gnosia is with 100% accuracy? I didn't throw the word accuracy in there. As I said, I enjoy the problem-solving and mystery aspects of the show, but I wish it had done a better job of fleshing out the world to make the game rules make more sense in the flow of the show. Every time I root for Rakio, they find a new way to get themselves frozen. I thought for a moment that the smartest person on the ship was choosing to throw themselves under the bus by claiming to be the engineer in order to protect whoever might be the engineer, in this case Yuri, from the suspicions that SQ was leveling at them. But no, can't even give that benefit of the doubt, as they instantly try to get Yuri frozen anyway. It legit looks like they are outing themselves as the engineer, making themselves a target by claiming that they will discover who the Gnosia is, and at the same time trying to freeze someone in the voting round. Think about that for a second, and you don't even have to be as smart as Rakio claims to be. Say Rakio is right, and you freeze Yuri, the Gnosia. You then go to warp, planning to detect if your next suspicion is a Gnosia or not. The Gnosia takes you out in the warp because you outed yourself. No one gets to find out what information you got, and all anyone knows is that there is still at least one Gnosia on board, which they already would have known due to the red lights. It's legitimately a terrible play. The thing I can't figure out is if they froze Rakio, why didn't they kill Yuri? Shigemichi even says he believes him and is proven to be the Gnosia by the end. They should have gone to warp, and Yuri should have woken up in the medbay at the start of a new loop. Levi doesn't know what a pencil is. I don't know what that portends, or maybe even indicates about the ship's computer. Definitely seems noteworthy, though. Especially that Yuri found it in the cafeteria, meaning someone else brought it, but also, I guess, that there was a time spent in the cafeteria that we didn't see. It's been a week since I last watched the episode, and I recall being confused as to how Yuri reached his conclusion, but I'm taking my notes and paused just before the beating. In fact, I'm on the screen where it shows Gina died in the warp. And I'm trying to guess what Yuri's deduction was ahead of time. On my one of my rare time-based note-takings, as it were. The only thing I can think of is the fact that Shigemichi was confident that Yuri was the engineer, and the only thing I remember from Yuri's speech coming up was that Shigemichi was the Gnosia. So I would conclude that Yuri got there because Shigi would know their Gnosia partner wasn't the engineer via that connection. Though that doesn't prove that Shigi was the Gnosia, it does present some sort of a lead, which I then suspect that Yuri followed, and Shigi would be hard-pressed to deny, having spent the last vote claiming that he's always right, and Yuri was the engineer. Obviously, at this point, I hit play and then had a lot to say about what was going on as it was happening. Oh right, suddenly the voting results are visible. Is that an engineer thing, or could they always do that? I can only guess he deduced it. Either way, the screen doesn't show any indicators of who voted for who. We know Yuri voted for Rakio, meaning 3 other people voted for Rakio, 2 for Yuri, 1 for Shigi. Yuri's point is that the 2 Gnosia would have voted in tandem, thus the 2 votes for him. I guess we can just use past loops as reference and assume Rakio voted for him, and if Rakio was lying about the engineer, Yuri then assumes that he must have been the Gnosia. For no reason in my book. Unless they are implying that the Gnosia can only lie. Because then, sorry, this might be a point where you just like, I'm fucking stupid or something, but I know that they say the Gnosia lie. But I just assume that means they lie as a thing, just like everybody lies. But if they meant back then, and I'm just realizing this now, if they meant back then that they lie about everything, that they cannot tell the truth, they're the 2 guard problem, and then just always lie, then fuck, man, I've been playing this game wrong. No wonder I'm still stuck in the tutorial. I guess let me know. Let me know if I just misinterpreted that and that's all they do. And in that case, I just need to find somebody who doesn't follow any of the shit that I've written down. Whatever. But legitimately, I have no clue how that points to Shigi being the other one. It just leaves a 50-50 shot that Shigi voted for Yuri or Rakio, since he's not trying to prove he's the engineer in this moment, Yuri, I mean. He's only using the facts of the vote. Or maybe they can see exactly who voted for who, and everyone can do it. Never mind, because obviously I'm writing that as it gets to the scene where literally Shiggy is saying, I also looked at the vote, and I can see everybody who voted for what. It's like, this is a bit of an off-the-cuff note-taking, and I apologize. Still, Shiggy is still a bit of a dumb Gnosia. Take out the person who can get definitive knowledge, and not the person who is just suspicious. Suspicions can be changed. If the engineer figures you out, they're going to be on you for the rest of the loop. My final note here, why wouldn't you just lash out and attack everyone if you are a Gnosia and about to get frozen? It was implied a bunch of infected people spread the Gnosia, Nos, whatever the virus is called, on La'an when the ship left. Just do that. I get it. It's not a game mechanic, just another element of the lore messing with what we can do. Alright, as I said, we do have a few notes. So, starting off, all of these notes come from the episode Loop, which is episode 2. We have The Wise Wolf. The following, hopefully, shouldn't contain any spoilers. It's based on what we've seen so far in the first 2 episodes, and some small differences between how things are done in that period in the game. Sorry, I just realized I said I was going to say something before I started the comments. What I'm going to say now applies to everything I do here on the channel, which is to say, do not assume that anything you see in a single episode is everything that I know. I know I typically have this whole thing about say what you are thinking, otherwise nobody knows. The element is that I rewatch episodes, and then I come back with the next episode with notes of everything I had about the last episode. So, if you go through episode 2 and you're like, oh man, this dumb idiot didn't see X thing, wait until the beginning of episode 3 where I go through all my notes and stuff, because I might say it there. If I don't say it by the next episode, then assume I missed it. That's the time. Sorry, there was specifically a commenter pointing out, did you not notice Gina's flashing thing when she lied or whatever? I hate it when people look away from the screen. That's the comment I was referring to before. I noticed. I brought it up in my episode 3 notes. So, anyway. Regarding most of your questions / speculations about, I'm going to do air quotes here, shouldn't we / they know Yuri is safe because medical pod / etc.? And also why the warping and your issue with how the scan works this episode? While obviously the explanations are what are that way because this makes the game work better, the general idea is that the ship can do the costly general scan that can detect Gnosia on board, and then the simplified scan that can confirm if Gnosia presence disappeared. But otherwise, the onboard systems are incapable of detecting Gnosia, medical pod or not. That's why the whole procedure with freezing one by one is necessary, and even that is a compromise. As said, episode 1, normally it would just self-destruct. Both of those scans are in-game, done during / after warp, thus the warp is necessary to know if Gnosia presence has disappeared, but also gives them a chance to kill someone. As I said, I understand that some of these are just game mechanics. My problem has thus far been that the show does not do a good enough job explaining why they are a thing in this world, not why. Sorry, this isn't a why element. We all understand this comes from a game, and we're trying to replicate the game mechanics as best as possible so that the game players who came here to watch the show based on a game that they enjoy are getting a similar experience to what they know. I'm not disputing that. I understand that 100%. I just think that the show needs to do a better job of explaining why those game mechanics make sense. I think I brought up before the element of Levi can detect that there's 2 Gnosia, but doesn't tell us why he knows it. It's a computer. Why they know that there's 2 Gnosia versus being unable to detect which one thing is a Gnosia. You could just technobabble it. I wouldn't care if it was technobabble. I would appreciate that you're trying. That's my problem. It doesn't feel like they're trying. And, I guess not for nothing, your comment doesn't really explain why we're warping. My problem with the warp is that the trade-off, as you mentioned, that we should just self-destruct, and, was it Setsu? basically negotiated with the computer to do this whole freezing thing. But they even say, otherwise, we're going to be stuck here forever. Where's the ship warping to? Why is it warping? Like, I think your indication here is that the scan happens during warp. Is it because the warp generates the power that's needed to do the scan? Because that would be a thing. Just explain it that way. We're in this weird predicament where we can only generate the power needed to do the scan if we go to warp. But we go to warp, and one of the Gnosia kills us. We're in this weird trade-off position. We'll be stuck here forever if we don't, I think it would be more impactful. That's all I'm saying. Most of that is explained in the initial text Yuri/player sees at the start of each loop, which also goes by almost unreadably fast in the game, but more readably than in the anime, though we only see it in loop 1, so I wouldn't exactly consider this a spoiler. I mean, I don't remember it being in text form at all. I just remember it being told to us. But again, as I'm saying, there's no logic behind what's being told to us. We're just being told the game's rules. The green/red light is an invention of the anime that, as you noticed, kinda breaks things, since it would seem that there is no need to warp, no risk attack, to check, and thus you could do the freezing one by one. I don't like people every time you guys put quotation marks, my immediate thought is air quote it. You're not being sarcastic, I don't know why I'm doing this. Freezing one by one thing you propose. Maybe they'll find a way to address this later, or maybe they just created a huge plot hole. I'm currently torn on this because while it adds a really nice suspense moment, it seems to break the logic of the whole setup. I've already ranted a bunch. You don't need more of my ranting about the logic. In the game, it's made quite clear we only know if we got rid of the Gnosia after a warp finishes. Though if the ending conditions for the loop have been reached, you do learn that immediately, but that's more of a convenience shortcut than anything. Since you do have to play quite a lot of loops, no need to waste your time with one more warp. Also, just to be clear, because the terms are a bit confusing, Gnosia infectees are infected by Nos, as mentioned in episode 1. They can't infect other humans to become another Gnosia or anything like that. Or at least the show so far doesn't imply that anywhere. I think the comparisons to zombies in episode 1 is a bit unfortunate, since that's not really how they work. Contact the Nos infectees people and makes them Gnosia. Gnosia eliminate humans. I find the infected by Gnosia term the subs use to be a bit of a misnomer. I mean, that's what I'm working on here. Because obviously, I don't know if you're talking about the zombie infection thing, because SQ does the whole thing across the table. I'm working more off of the graphic that they showed about like the human in red, and then it spreads out across there. Like, how do people become infectees if Nos doesn't infect them? So clearly this is a thing that can be spread somehow. Oh, and regarding the SQ being a murderer hypothesis you mentioned, as interesting of a twist that would be, if anything like that happened, Levi would have spotted it immediately since it knows what's happening on the ship. Remember, it, for example, intervened when SQ wanted to sleep over in Yuri's room and interacts with the crew basically everywhere on the ship. Presumably there are cameras everywhere. The reason Gnosia can kill without being spotted is because, as you mentioned, the Gnosia can move during the warp when everything else is essentially stopped in time. It's also why Gnosia probably wouldn't kill anyone outside of that. Levi would instantly know they were Gnosia. I think you've created more loopholes than you think you've solved. One, if we had a murderer on the ship that wasn't a Gnosia, wouldn't everyone just suspect that they were a Gnosia? And by the same token, if a Gnosia knew that there was a murderer on the ship, wouldn't they just start murdering people claiming to be a murderer the same way as the other person? Levi all Levi would know is that this person killed this other person. I mean, maybe we just freeze murderers. I mean, I'm just saying that opening up the can of worms that is people killing other people, because I believe that is essentially what freezing them is technically, because, Rockio even says, this will kill you. There's no indication that this is safe at all. That's essentially us killing each other, and then the Gnosia kills us if we fail to get rid of it. So having that happen in between stuff would just be a different thing. And I don't know, maybe I missed something because I just don't remember it ever being indicated that time stops during a warp. It's just that everyone had to be strapped down in their beds or something. Presumably Levi still needs to be active and alert to keep the ship going right during the warp. So why can't it detect stuff moving? Also, sorry, my mind has been wandering a bit because I have a suspicion. I don't think I mentioned in my notes about. I just swore we saw a character who had a glowing hand or doing something like that. Maybe the character from the end of last episode, or maybe it's a character in the opening. That I swear they saw him doing like that, and I had a suspicion. Well, wait, Rockio mentioned one of these characters. Not one of these characters. Rockio mentioned that there's beings out there who can control the time looping thing. Presumably, somebody made the box too. So, what if one of these future characters is going to be a time looping character who then Yuri has an ally with from then on, or continuing animosity? Who the hell knows? That could also be somebody who could move around and warp. I just don't understand the time stop thing because I don't think it's been explained to me. For your vote speculation, as far as the game goes at least, you can't vote for yourself, but I'm unsure what vote distribution makes the most sense in episode 1. I do think Rockio voted for Yuri. It's perfectly in character for them, but I'm not sure who voted SQ in that case. Yeah, that's something I have learned very specifically. Well, I think somebody else said it in a comment, but also when I was rewatching the episode, I did notice that the thing pops up and everyone listed is everyone -1 because you can't vote for yourself. Sorry for being rambly. I love the game and I really like the adaptation so far, with small caveats, so find it easy to talk way too much. No, I mean I love longer comments, and I especially love them when they interact with either stuff that I've said or stuff from the show that I'm also considering. So these are the kind of comments that I actually enjoy. Not saying there's comments I don't. Well, there are comments I don't enjoy. I just don't read them. Next up is one from Hasai. I'm really enjoying your reaction to this series. The amount of notes you're taking will absolutely come in handy. Also, thank you for taking the time to acknowledge and respect the non-binary characters in the show. It was expected that the general anime community wouldn't be great about it, so it's awesome to be able to watch someone who isn't a dick about it. My problem is I feel like I am a dick about it because I hate every time I make a mistake. That's why I just try to autocorrect immediately as possible. My head is granite. My head is concrete, and I'm trying to make it more rubber so that I can bounce into the thoughts that need to be had. I'm sure the anime will get around to explaining certain things as we go, but there's a lot of reasons why things went as they did this episode. Hopefully this isn't sharing too much. I'm not going to directly spoil anything, but totally cool to skip and not read if you're worried. Sorry, the element is usually I do try to browse ahead to make sure there are no spoilers. I think the only thing I saw going into this is that you aren't going to spoil anything, so I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt here. If you ruin your benefit of the doubt, there might not be future comments read. Rockio was swayed by SQ's idea that Setsu was manipulating Yuri, which is why Rockio switched targets to Setsu on day 1. Not for nothing. A Rockio survival time, well, until he dies, but until they die. See? It's my head. In the game, at least, you are unable to vote for yourself, and if you look at Yuri's vote screen, they don't have the option to select himself. This makes the result of day 1's vote suspicious, assuming Yuri's assumptions were correct. If they and Gina both voted for SQ, then how could Setsu have gotten 3 votes? In that case, Gina couldn't have voted for SQ. I'll have to go back and reinvestigate that particular vote, because obviously I thought I was right at the time, and then the proving that Yuri couldn't have voted for himself just changes the entire dynamic. And apparently it's going to be a thing moving forward, as per my notes, that you can see other players' votes, so determining who voted for who is actually going to be more important now, going forwards, than it was then. Due to the nature of what Gnosia are and how they kill, they are only able to kill during a warp. To kill someone in traditional methods outside of a warp would somewhat defeat the purpose of what they do. Gnosia also don't seek to spread infection, but to simply kill humans. Infection is caused by coming into contact with something called Nos, not from Mother Gnosia, if that makes sense. Well, I think as per previous comment and previous notes, it doesn't really, because we haven't seen Nos before, right? I don't know if that's like a spore or, just don't know what it is. I'm assuming it might be a spore, given the Stella thing from earlier. But also, the comment that I made before, if you are a Gnosia and you're about to get frozen because you lost the vote, why not just freak the fuck out and start killing people? Nothing to lose at that point, right? This might be the element that I'm playing as out in my head, more like the movie The Thing, the original The Thing, or I guess the original The Thing is The Thing from Another World. The second The Thing, John Carpenter's The Thing, not the sequel thing that came out later, where I feel like that's how the Gnosia would play things up, but I also, in that element, that Gnosia would just be a shape-shifting killer, so I don't know. Also, due to the nature of the Gnosia's existence, it is only detectable by Levi during warp, so leaving the ship outside of warp doesn't matter. The ship won't know unless the Gnosia is gone after warp. This is also why the ship still warps despite people dying, as it's the only way for it to know if the Gnosia is gone. That's where I contend with you. That is not said. It's never explained why the ship is warping. You know, I assume, because you're playing the game, or have played the game, or beat the game, whatever. You have game knowledge. It's never said there. They find out if the Gnosia is still on the ship or not on the ship. They find out if the Gnosia is still among them just by someone getting frozen. They go into the freezer, light changes, then we know. Which assumedly means that Levi is constantly detecting for the Gnosia, or is only detecting for the Gnosia when someone goes into the freezer. In which case, why wouldn't they then check when somebody leaves the ship? That is so... God, I hate that one so much. Also weird because it feels like you're bringing this up in episode 2 with the anticipation that I'm going to read this somewhere around episode 3. Because I think episode 3... Or did we just watch episode 3? I'm sorry, I'm so lost in my own head now. This still throws me, the element that they leave the ship. You gotta remember, I've never played the game. I didn't even know the game existed before I watched the trailer for the seasonal anime review. So I don't go into this knowing any of the rules of the game until either you all tell me or, it comes up as an element as part of the anime episode that we're watching. So I don't have the preconceived notion that the warp causes the scan. There is no scan done during the warp, during the anime. Only thing that happens during the warp in the anime is that the Gnosia kills somebody. Which is then why I'm asking, why the fuck are we warping? I'd be like arguing with the computer. Because at that point, it feels like the computer is a psychopath. Look, I'm not blowing myself up for you guys, but we need to be making time on this. So either you guys start voting, or I'm going to start letting them kill you. That's what Levi feels like. But, yeah, again, the element that we do it when we free someone just kind of really feels like that's it. That's the only time. And there's no explanation as why it doesn't do it when somebody leaves the ship. It's like, if it's a thinking artificial intelligence, that should be the moment. That's when it thinks, this is the time to do it. This, however, causes problems with the lamp in the cold sleep room not being able to determine if the Gnosia are gone without warping. This lamp is an anime original thing, so I guess we'll have to see how they'll work with it in these things later. Sorry. This is the element that I go off on a tangent, and you have answered... Well, you have responded essentially to what I'm already going on a tangent about in your next note, so I can only imagine people sitting out there being like, just read the next thing already, shut the fuck up and read the next thing. Apologies, but yeah, as I said, I only have knowledge from the anime side of things. So, when it comes to stuff that happens in the game, and the anime has changed it, all I know is what the anime has changed. Next up we have 12 Arc Kitsch. Freeze one by one wouldn't work, to be honest. There is only limited time to discuss and vote before each warp, and cold sleep is dangerous and could never wake up. Which is why they don't all just volunteer to go in immediately and avoid getting killed. Going outside would just get killed during a warp. There is a Levi's warp scan that can detect numbers of Gnosia on the whole ship, including the freezer, so the numbers would always be the same. And there is the ship's cold sleep scan that can detect when they freeze all the Gnosia, or if there are any Gnosia left on the ship at all, except the freezer, but neither can scan or detect who it is specifically. Alright, I'm going to say this. It feels like your entire note comes from the game. Because per the anime, like the things that they must have changed in the anime, I don't think you can disprove me. I mean, you probably can, but I don't think this comment disproves me. Obviously, I can be disproven. There's a back and forth argument in everything I say. But yeah, your comment specifically seems to refer to the game's rules, as previous commenters have already discussed. And that's not the way it works in the show. Or if it is, it's not been explained again, as per my notes about they really need to flesh out the rules for the anime, because again, things work differently in a game where you can only click and choose options, versus an anime where anyone can move in a three-dimensional environment and have thoughts of their own and whatnot. By the way, I apologize if I keep rubbing my nose. For some reason, all of a sudden it became super itchy, like allergies or something. Alright, lastly, the last note from JL. So this wasn't ever stated in the game, but it was explained in a dev interview, so I'm hoping it makes it into the anime, but I don't know if it will, so I'll put it under a big gap if you don't want to know. According to the devs, Rakio's headphones are a hearing aid because they were born with weak hearing, but they also use it for listening to music. Presumably the backpack they're wired into is some kind of amp, which would ironically make this very sci-fi technology really similar to an old style of hearing aid that was wired into a box you clipped to your belt/clothes. It's ironic because we had a small back and forth in the comment section because I immediately thought of Accelerator from a certain scientific railgun who, has his power reflected back to him at some point and he becomes extremely injured, and I think he wears like a talking thing and a hearing thing, but he has it clipped around his neck, if memory serves. Both the billiards line and the 3D chess line are taken from the game. I think it's a bit funnier in game because Levi asks if you want to play something, and most players see 3D chess and click it, like, isn't all chess 3D? And then you get the absurd reaction. No one knows what 3D chess actually is. This is really silly, but on Tumblr, people like to call them a bird. I'm referring to Rakio. There was timestamps to these. I just kind of combined a bunch of JL's comments into one comment. People like to call them a bird because of the feathers they wear. So, like, you could say, my bird, LOL. I think this is obviously as a response to the fact that I was kept to saying that my default is to want to say my guy, but they don't identify as a guy, so I keep getting thrown. Because again, I would refer to the same thing as a woman. My problem is my go-to was about to say Setsu, but Setsu, apparently, I don't know if it's a timeline thing yet, or if they just don't, if they're androgynous as well. Because, right, they say I'm not a man, and they also say I'm not a woman, but they say it in two different timelines, so I don't know if that's a together thing, or it's an individual aspect statement, which I brought up in my last note section. Because I automatically think of what's her name from The Good Place. She's technically a construct or something, so she's constantly saying, I'm not a woman. Anyway, stuff to find out. But yeah, that was the board, that was my notes, that was all the comments, so there's nothing left to do here but to hop on in and see what this episode has for us.
But before we get started,
make sure that you hit the like button,
hit that subscribe button,
comment down below to feed that algorithm.
On top of all that, if you want to watch more shows like this, unfiltered,
uncensored,
and uncut,
as well as some early access stuff,
you can check it out over on the Patreon.
It's just $5 a month, but hey, no pressure.
There's zero pressure in order to do that. It's just a little bit of extra support, and it would be greatly appreciated.
Right, the elevator. I mean, I like her holier than thou appearance. Oh, maybe they are holier than thou. I mean, she has a whole Queen of Egypt thing going on, I feel like.
ユーリ、節、もう目覚めたんだね。どう？少しは分かった。即性学習。サボタージュですか？そんな真似許しませんよ。
I guess in this loop she was slowed down by something and didn't get there in
私
time.
もよく知らないけど、赤穂即戦の巫女だったらしい。
Well, like I said, holier than thou. And again, if you're somehow joining me for the first time this episode, I have to talk over the opening for copyright reasons. Sublight speed ship, though. Why? If she was a okay, obviously that usually refers to like colony ships or generational ships. So, could be that a religion was formed on one of those over a long period of time. My question, though, lands, what is she doing here? Given that this is a ship that warps. If you're watching this on Patreon, you can tell what I'm pointing at. If you're watching this on YouTube, I apologize, I'm pointing at nothing, basically. She's standing there, she's glowing, her eyes are glowing, and she's putting her hand out. And for some reason, when I saw that, when I was writing my notes last time, I was thinking, does she have time powers? Because there's also an element in there where Setsu is holding a thing in her hand that looks like the thing that she put into Yuri. Sorry, that they put into Yuri. That it just makes me think, okay, is there going to be more time travel stuff from other people than Yuri? Because again, we've already covered that Yuri cannot enter a timeline where he is the Gnosia. Because of the whole time thing. Oh wow, instantly proven wrong by my own note. I said that they wouldn't remove people through this whole timeline thing. And they instantly did it. I always love when I'm prescient about this stuff. Damn. I was really hoping to get more Gina because I want to find out if I'm right about the lying thing. Then the clarification on the element of why Yuri is the only one who can see the Flash. Okay, one Gnosia, no engineer, it seems. Unless they don't always announce the engineer bit.
ジナがおらず、新たなメンバーも増えている。条件が違う以上、誰がグノーシアなのかなんてわかるはずもない。大体グノーシアを見つけたところで何になるというんだ。
Yeah. The element. Alright, I know last time I had all these thoughts about the fact that we can't win. And I don't think I took any notes about the fact that we can't win. Like, how do we win? Because I really doubt that it's actually a Groundhog's Day situation where you had to get it perfect. I mean, there's obviously always the element that maybe Setsu does know what's going on.
どうやら全く聞いてなかった様子だね。その間抜けな顔は。いや、
有利の考えを聞かせてほしい。そう言ったんだけど。
いや、正直よくわからない。
Yeah, I mean, if you're feeling hopeless, it doesn't really make much sense. Okay, that's Rakio.
ならば、お前でいいでしょう。おい待てよ、なんで俺になるんだよ。
その怪しげな仮面は嘘を隠すためですか？
She was in an accident.
ここに来た時から共同、視線ともに落ち着きがないようです。
俺はこれが普通だ。
うかつな行動をした自分を呪うがいい。下がりなさい。
I mean, to be fair, that seems like how he was the last 2 times we've known him.
投票は終了しました。
I will be shocked if Yuri doesn't get 1 vote.
投票率 100%。
Because that would mean that Rakia was swayed by it. Rakia was swayed by the new girl? Yurika only got 1 vote, which means that both Gnosia probably voted for Shigemichi, which means Shigemichi's not one of the Gnosia.
場を制する力があるのかもしれ
You
ない。
think Rakia voted for
説の
her?
話だと巫女だとか言っていたけど、僕のこと何か知っているのか。
It's hard to figure that one out because everyone voted for one person. Obviously. Ah, the fish thing again. Obviously, I think I'm wrong about that.
ああ、巫女らしいんだけど、何か知ってることはないかなって。
おう、見て見て。イラン、超可愛くない？
そうだね。
残念だけど S q ちゃん、こう見えて世間に出るようになってまだ1年。1歳なのでちよ。だから何も知らないのでちよ。
What are you, a clone?
箱入り娘だったってこと？
あ、そっか。まさにそれ、箱入り娘。だからほら、ピチピチでしょ、お肌。
本当だ。
I'm assuming they mean that they are 1 year old, not that they've been in the world 1 year old.
高速船。
Or for 1 year.
宇宙を漂いながら祈りを捧げている。
何をこそこそ嗅ぎ回っているのです？その目、なるほど。いいでしょう。場所を変えます。ついてきなさい。
Holodeck time? Oh, Rockio in the background there. You see that?
ここにします。ご覧なさい。彼方の星々がよく見える。
Again, Rockio took his pills.
そして
Sorry, they took their pills, which we haven't seen them do in a long time. But it was one of the elements that I took down that they meant that they were the human Rockio.
どう思います？お前は。
答えるべきか。いや、でも答えれば僕の心理を利用して誘導される可能性も。
滑稽な。何も知らないのですね、お前は。まあ良いです。いずれイヤオにも気づくことになるでしょう。己の歪みに。
She's not doing the eye glowing thing, though, like she does from the opening. I don't know. I would hope that other people saw that and I could use that as proof that they might be the Gnosia.
僕が。
空間転移まであと10、9、8。
But we're gonna hear scream. Oh. How am I so incredibly wrong all the time? Definitely it's not Rockio this time. Immediately. The first time we even see somebody moving in warp beyond SQ, the first time.
僕がグノーシアに襲われたんだ。空間転移の途中で。
前のループで。
ああ。
Told you.
ループ？なんで説がループのこと知ってるんだ？
Setsu clearly knew what the hell was going on.
そうだけど。
That was in my notes too. That if they've been doing this before, that if they've been doing this before, that they should still have one, unless the timeline changed it. I even talked about him getting a time looping ally.
まだループがなぜ起きているかも分かってない。
説は分かるの？
分かった。ちゃんと説明するよ。それをあげたのは私だからね。
God, again, I love when I'm prescient about things that. God damn it, Rakio. Why did I pick the one person who's always wrong?
好きってわけじゃないけど、落ち着いて考え事するのにいいかなって。
私には寂しすぎるかな。変えてもいい？
うん。
レビ、
Let it be a
P の
bistro.
パターン7で。
かしこまりました。
No? Okay. Oh?
こんなのもあるのか。
I said bistro because of the coffee comment from episode 1 that I brought up
このくらい
before.
賑やかな方が好きなんだ。何？
いや、賑やかなの好きなんだなって。
別にいいだろ。それよりこれの話。これは銀の鍵。人に寄生してループを引き起こす生命体なんだ。
生命体？
Oh, Rakio said it of life forms, so it makes sense.
そういう生命体がいるって。
As I just said.
どうして笑うんだ？
いや、なんでも。
ということは、もしかして説も。
ああ、私もループしている。けど、二人のループの回数は同期しないんだ。世界線も違う。例えば、今ユーリはまだ5回目のループ。私はもう100回以上ループしている。
Groundhog's Day, yeah.
回も。
そう。この銀の鍵
I also had to wonder if she's given the key to other people then. If they've given the key to other people
人間に関する
then.
知識に興味があるんだ。それを集めるために宿り主をループさせる。よく見て。これが私が集めた知識。これで銀の鍵を満たせばいい。
So is it like a new experiences thing, or just how many loops? That is a bistro. That's a bistro sign. I called this right.
ごめんなさい。少し焼きすぎてしまって。
She's the Gnosia.
それ、団子って言うらしいっすよ。
We established before that she is a good cook,
みたらし団子。
and I don't think she'd make mistakes. But also remember that I was just completely wrong about Rakio a moment before.
強いて言えば、ジナの好物が分かった。
それで十分だよ。出してみて。
これが知識。これを満たすことができれば。あら、ユーリ様、セツ様。
I guess that's
綺麗な花だ。
good impetus to have to learn information about everyone. It helps you defeat the loops, but it also helps you defeat the game.
ステラは何が好きなの？
お花です。部屋にもっとたくさんありますよ。ご覧になりますか？
ああ、後で行くよ。
はい。セツ様もぜひ。
No need, Yuri. You already got that information.
あれ？
Yeah, you already know that she likes flowers.
ステラが花が好きってこと、今までのループでもう知ってたんじゃ。
僕がもう知ってる知識はダメなのか？
It's weird. This is the most non-part of the game element that I've countered, but it's the one I'm most on with.
その人の性格や言動を形作った生い立ちや好き嫌い、隠れた願望や未来への夢、あらゆる情報を
Take my notepad, Yuri.
銀の鍵はそれを知識として貯めていく。そしてこれが知識によって全て満たされた時、銀の鍵は宿り主の体を離れ、新たな宿り主を探して別の次元に移動。
Well, then you need to strategically time it so that you're winning the loop when it leaves.
それがとても重要なことなんだ。君が抱える問題を解決するには。
Because otherwise, you just sit in front of Levi's database.
とにかく知識を貯めるためにここにいる乗員たちと関係を築いて。
Again, my theory about each one of those fish is representing a character in the
君
crew.
自身のために。
わかった。
だから会議も無駄じゃない。生き延びれば生き延びるほど一緒にいる時間は長くなり、聞き出すチャンスは多くなる。
ループして戻ってしまったら、また初対面からやり直しだもんね。
そう。
But I'm just thinking about if I would need to make a chart connecting each fish to each
生
character.
き延びることを目指した方がいい。たとえループすると分かっていてもね。
わかった。
空間転移まであと10分です。
自室にお戻りください。わかったよ、レビー。ありがとう。
Libby, who's conceivably heard this entire conversation as well, can't do anything about
と
it.
りあえずこのループでは一緒だ。グノーシアを排除して少しでも生き延びられるように頑張ろう。
部屋に戻るよ。じゃあね。
Could be a Gnosia. Setsu, this time.
どうして今までのループで私もループしていることを有利に打ち明けなかったかわかる？
いや、
有利がグノーシア汚染されている可能性があるからだよ。敵だとしたら情報を教えたくないからね。でも今回有利は人間だと確定している。私がグノーシアだから。
Well, there we go. Proves it can't happen.
説
But does that mean that she's always the Gnosia? Or that she became... Or it's also the element that...
説がグノーシア。
Sorry, I had to cover that for a second. There's also the element that with an infinite number of timelines... With an infinite number of timelines... Sorry, I had to let that play out too. That there could be an infinite number of Setsus traveling,
SQ が
and some of them could be Gnosia.
また私は失敗したのかな。
何を落胆しているのです？こうなることは昨日グノーシアを排除できなかった時点で自明。
それはそうだけど。
Again, I'm assuming this is a one only one. I think they said that at the beginning.
グノーシアは人間を襲い消滅はさせますが、命を奪いはしないとも言われています。魂を別のところに移すだけだと。
Who says that?
よくわかってはいないけどね。その方がいや。
チノ。
私はグノーシアに消されるぐらいなら自分で。
好きになさい。とにかく時間はないのです。次の煮えを決めるとしましょう。
潜伏しているグノーシアは一人。昨日ラキオがコールドスリープになり、空間転移の時に SQ が
And Stella heard what you said,
確定している
and
情報は
apparently said
これ
nothing
だ
to
け。
anybody.
おっしゃる通りです。
エンジニアは
申請は出ておりますが、
名乗り出る者はいないようだね。
話し合いで煮えを決め
That
る
felt like a but, but they didn't use the thing.
どう思う？
僕は正直まだなんとも。
怪しいと思っている人は
どういう意味だ。なぜ自分がグノーシアだと明かしたんだ。
They're trying to get you to out them.
それとも。
You think that's why they said I'm not a man, I'm not a woman? I'm a Gnosia? They've always been the Gnosia?
落ち着け。
Well, this could be an element of a way to gather more information you can only get as the Gnosia.
心外だな。僕は正直に答えただけだけど。
ほ
私が質問したからだよ。有利は答えたに過ぎない。
う、
一つ確認させていただいてもよろしいでしょうか。節様と有利様、昨晩話していたことは事実なのでしょうか。
昨晩って
節様自身がおっしゃっていたことです。ご自身がグノーシアであると。
ほう、これは面白いよ今日。
そうなの？
はい、有利様も聞いていたはずです。
どうなのですか、お前。
You're looping, it doesn't matter. The implications already come out that essentially you can get frozen, or... I mean, why would freezing have any effect that being killed doesn't have? Also, you know, if you're the last two left, Stella's gonna kill you. Stella. Setsu, I meant. Setsu is going to kill you. Well, Stella, you step up, you get knocked down.
どうして
More like, but
私はグノ
why
ーシアだと
for
言ったはず
Yuriko?
どうして嘘をついたの
Why did Yuriko
お互い様だろ。
vote the way they did?
会議で疑いが僕に向いた時になぜ僕を守った？僕は君の正体を知ってるんだよ。
そうだね。
どうして教えたんだ僕に。
わからない。けど多分知りたかったんだと思う。
I think it also just answers my question from before.
どうするのか。
どうだった？
That Gnosia don't always just lie,
想
as
像
was
通
my
りだったか
concern.
な。
Because she told him all the things
こ
about
んな
the
風に
loop and
答えられ
whatnot.
てどこか寂しい人。だけどね、自分の不利になることはしないでほしい。それは自分を苦しめるだけだから。
それは説も同じだろ。グノーシアが自分から正体を名乗るなんて一番やっちゃいけないことだ。
そうだね。
Again, I think he's still the one that gave Setsu the
空間
coffee
転移になったら
back on
僕を消
La'an,
滅させてほしい。
which might have been when they got
じゃな
infected.
いとステラに申し訳が立たない。グノーシアに味方したんだから。
わかった。でもこれだけは約束して。その世界線での自分の役割を全力で果たして。私が怪しいと思ったらいくら攻撃してくれても構わない。このループを終わらせるためにも。
ああ、お互いに。
How much it must suck. Yeah, say how much it must suck to be one of the other two. Sorry, did that say that what's her name was the Yuriko was the
わかっ
engineer?
た。ああ。この船に逃げ込んだのは全部で8人。私、ユーリ、ラキオ、ジナ、ステラ、ユリコ、それと
Should be a dolphin? Nope. Okay. Clearly SQ's rival. So yeah, this was an episode. I think I might need to create a special subsection of the board for characters who are not outside of time, but can keep their information outside of time. Because obviously I have my loop information for everyone who's, I use the word here, normal, who aren't affected by the timeline loops, right? Parts of them don't change. Versus now Setsu and Yuri, whose relationship can change across the looping timelines. But also, I guess the element of they aren't always a Gnosia, which means that they do get changed by the timeline. But that would also seem to indicate that Yuri could wake up at any moment and be not different person. There's been an element of the last couple episodes that I've watched where I've been looking at Yuri's gloves, because for some reason from episode 1 to episode 2, I could have sworn their gloves changed. And I was like, do their gloves change every timeline? And it's been like the opening thing that I said before and the fish thing. Crazy theories that I keep coming up with that aren't anywhere near true. And I keep forgetting that this show has no next time on. I don't remember if there ever was one, but I keep expecting there to be. Yeah, no, crazy episode. I guess I need what I said in my notes, right? I need an extra episode to confirm that the stuff was true. So I need they weren't a Gnosia previous to this loop. So that would then imply that that was just a one-time thing. So they can loop into having been a Gnosia. So I guess that's a thing. But I guess that stands opposed to my conceit that Yuri might never be a Gnosia. But if now the goal is to fill up the thing with as much information as possible, then escape the loop, that's I guess that's, again, a very clever game mechanic. The element that by the time you filled it up, you know everything about everybody on the ship, right? Enough that you should be able to defeat them in convincing them of things, or pointing out why a person's a Gnosia and not this other person. So by the time it leaves you, you should have enough knowledge to beat the game. I mean, if that's part of the game, that's pretty clever game design. I like that. If that's an anime original thing, then whatever, I like it either way. Rakio still getting taken out first every time. On one hand, kind of sucks. On the other hand, super me. It didn't use it in the example that I gave the AI of characters I've been drawn as in previous shows to indicate what character I should be drawn as the next show. But in Iron-Blooded Orphans, Crank, Zet, something like that, I can't remember his last name, was, I said, my favorite character. That guy, I like that guy. Yeah, I think he was, spoiler warning here, like, next 5 seconds, dead in the first 2 to 3 episodes. So, it's usually my way. Whoever I pick as a character tends to die. So having a character who gets offed, like the first vote every time, or in the rare case, offed in the first warp, it's as per for my norm. It's just galling. Smartest person on the ship. You're not proving it, my bird. Jeez. Also, I guess to my fish theory, it seemed like Rakio was pushing into the fish tank when he was when they were going after Yuri. Maybe I just was seeing that wrong because I was handling so many episodes of anime that I've watched this week have been like info dumps to the extreme, but like not exposition dumps, but like everything you've been wondering about for a long time now. We're gonna go over everything. And this one, granted, it's been like 3 episodes, 4 episodes, so it hasn't been like everything you've ever wondered, but it has literally answered a ton of questions that I had from my note section, or proved some of them wrong, which, disproving me in one way, is still answering me. Yeah. Like I said, this one leaves me with a lot to consider, and I really like that from the episode. Specifically because it's basically why I chose this show out of all of the anime of the season, right? I could have gone back, watched more One Punch Man, started a watch series of My Hero Academia, which probably would have done pretty well on this channel. I wanted a show that looked like it was going to scratch that same itch that I get from like Apothecary Diaries, or Yatagarasu, or I guess to some different extent Madozushi, Link Click. I think this falls into that category of show, which I really enjoy. Well, anyway, I didn't mention this at the start of the episode, but this is like a 2 a.m. reaction from me, so I'm thinking it's time to call it a night. So, once again, thank you for joining. I have been Theta, this has been Stoneface Reactions, and we will catch you next time. Bye-bye.
Hey everybody, thanks for watching another Stoneface Reactions. If you have an idea of another video we could go ahead and watch, go ahead and put it in the comments down below and we'll add it to the wheel. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and let us know what you thought about this video, what parts you liked. And until then, we'll see you next time. Is this too goofy?